which I know is kind of dumb, but it just kind of happens. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Jessie, and today I'm talking about the 10 books/series that I really only own and or read because of Booktube and Bookstagram. So I have been on Bookstagram for almost 3 years now, and I've been on Booktube for almost 2 years now. And in that time, I have gathered quite a large collection of books. Before I found the online book community, I was primarily borrowing books from the library and reading ebooks. But since I found the online community and started posting and sharing stuff, I've definitely bought quite a few books. And I have noticed that there are some books that I have only bought because of the hype, or received and asked for to be gifted, like for Christmas and stuff, because of the hype. And I have noticed I'm very easily influenced. I want to read what other people are reading. And so I kind of wanted to go through my bookshelf and talk about 10 books/series that I only own because of the hype, that I only picked up or requested because of the hype. And I kind of want to talk about why I requested them, or like what was going on at the time. And if I read them, did I like them? If I haven't read them, why I haven't read it yet. And so I thought this could be an interesting little video idea, and we'll just kind of see what happens. Before I get started talking about the books though, I just want to take a minute to remind you to please like this video and subscribe to my channel to make finding my content just a little bit easier. The first book I have is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This book was all over the place in 2019 around the time I found the book community. And one day I was on, I don't remember the website, it's one of the websites though where you can just kind of buy really cheap books. This was on sale for really cheap, I think under like $6, and I bought it because I'd seen it all over the place and I was interested, and so I wanted to read it. And I think this is one that I got in April 2020. That's whenever I really started buying and collecting books, because that was also the time Chris built my bookshelves for me. I don't really remember what this book is about exactly. I think it like involves some teenagers. There was an accident. I think one of the characters doesn't quite remember what happened, and I think they get their memories back throughout this book. I might be mixing this up with another book, but I haven't read this yet. This has been on my bookshelf for almost 2 years. I have had no real interest in touching it. And so this is one that if I don't read sometime soon, I might consider unhauling because it's just taking up space and I haven't touched it. But I remember this being all over the place. I have seen so many people talk about this book, but also I guess it wasn't that memorable if I don't quite remember what it was about. So it's one that I might read, but I'm also considering unhauling. So I guess stick around on my Instagram and YouTube channel to find out about that. The next book I have is Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas. And I don't know that I would have ever heard about this book, or it would have taken me a much longer time to hear about this book if I hadn't been following Aidan Thomas on Twitter, which I don't think I had followed them yet at this point in time. I think that sometime in 2020, early 2020, someone had shared a post Aidan Thomas made, and after that I went and followed Aidan Thomas and put this on my wish list and on my Goodreads TBR. I also ended up putting Cemetery Boys on my Amazon wish list, and someone sent that to me in I believe late 2020 or early 2021. I read that one, loved it, and I knew already that even though I'd already wanted to read this one, I was definitely going to read it, and that's what prompted me to buy this book. This book is a Peter Pan retelling, except it's a little bit different. Whenever Wendy was younger, she and her brothers went to Neverland, and then her brothers and a bunch of other children went missing, and Wendy came back. She was the only one who came back, and now other children are starting to go missing again, and Wendy kind of has to figure out what's going on. I actually really love this book. I read this in April of 2021, and this was actually one of my most anticipated 2021 releases. So this one was a really good book, and I'm really glad I was influenced to buy this one. The Grishaverse books by Leigh Bardugo are these interconnected series that I don't know if I would have ever picked up if I hadn't joined the online book community. At the time that I joined the online book community, I wasn't really sure how I felt about fantasy. I was really sure that I might like fantasy, but I was pretty sure I was only really into contemporary books. But I went ahead and ordered the box set of Shadow and Bone, of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and the box set of the Six of Crows duology. And I have completed the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and while it's not my favorite series in the world, it's one that I could see myself rereading, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Alina, I enjoyed the world, but I mostly just enjoyed the way this series set up the world for the rest of the books. Which, to be fair, Six of Crows is the only other Grishaverse book I have read. I absolutely love Six of Crows. Six of Crows follows, the Crows, Nej, Kaz, Nina, Matthias, Wylan, and Jesper. I had a great time with these characters. I really enjoyed them. I liked almost everything about this book. I haven't read Crooked Kingdom yet though, because I have been spoiled for some stuff in it, and I'm kind of bummed about that. And it's been long enough that whenever I decide to read Crooked Kingdom, I am going to need to reread Six of Crows first. I was really prompted to read the Grishaverse books, mostly because of this Netflix series. So many people online were posting about the Netflix series and getting hyped up for it and excited for it. And I buy into hype. It gets me I don't even like Netflix shows that much. I just get bored, I get anxious, get stressed, so I stop watching them. I only watched the first 6 episodes because Chris and I binged them in like 2 days, and then we never made it to the last 2. So, but overall, it was a success. I had a great time with this series, or this book, and I had a good time with this series. I also ended up getting the Folk of the Air trilogy by Holly Black sometime in 2020, but I didn't read it until 2021. This is another series that I wasn't really sure if I would like because I was unsure of my feelings about fantasy, and I also wasn't sure how I felt about fairies in like fantasy settings. Plus, I remember reading, I think, Tip by Holly Black in high school, and it was one that I DNF'd before I even knew what DNFing was. I ended up being sold on this book, though, after I actually started getting into reading fantasies, and after seeing so many people post about the enemies to lovers relationship that Jude and Cardan have. And so I got excited, and I decided to finally read it after it sat on my shelf for close to a year. Overall, this series was a success for me, and I had a great time with it. This series follows Jude, who is immortal, who lives in the fairy world, and it's pretty much her climb of power. Her becoming more powerful in this world and like learning to not have to depend on as many other people to keep her safe there, right? And while the romance was like what triggered me to want to read this book, it is not what kept me in this series. I didn't hate Jude and Cardan as a couple, but also I didn't really particularly love them either. They were fine, but they're definitely not what kept me in this series. Jude herself is what kept me in this series, and I really enjoyed that. Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson is another one I bought purely because of the hype. I remember seeing this one posted quite a bit all over the place in 2019 and maybe early 2020, and so I ordered it from whatever website I ordered We Were Liars from. I don't remember the website, I wish I did, but I know this one came fairly cheap, and I have been excited to read it since it's been on my shelf, but I also just keep putting it off. I did read an Enchantment of Ravens after I'd already bought this book as an ebook on Scribd, and I loved it. I had a great time with it, which leads me to think I would really like this book whenever I eventually get around to it. This book also has a trope that I have found I really enjoy since buying this book. It has the witch and witch hunter and falling in love trope, and so that's a trope that I've enjoyed in other books, especially other YA fantasy books. So I think it's another reason why I might really enjoy this book if I ever get around to it. I picked up 7 Days in June by T. Williams, I believe in November of 2021. It was around the time Rowan was having heart surgery. I had started off reading the ebook on Libby. So many people had been posting about it all over the place, on Instagram especially. And then I saw it on the 7-day checkout, so I checked it out. But I kind of ran out of time to read it, and so I picked up the physical copy, and I'm so glad I did. I had such a great time with it. This book follows Ava and Shane, who had a fling together their senior year of high school several years in the past, but at the time they had their fling, they both had a lot of really rough things going on in their personal lives. It's, I believe, about 15 years later, maybe a little bit more, and they are both successful writers, and somehow they end up coming across each other at this writing conference. And they kind of have another week together, and they kind of see how things could go. And I just really enjoyed this book. It had flashbacks from the past and the present, and it was just a really great book. I really loved this book. This book had the second chance romance trope, which is another trope that I typically enjoy when done right. Also, my cat just bumped the camera. She is a little clingy today. But I had a really great time with this book, and this is one that I'm glad the hype made me buy. The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon was a great book, and I really loved it, but I don't know that I would have bought it or read it at all if I hadn't seen so many other people talking about it. At the time that I picked this book up, several people over the summer were doing reading challenges with it on TikTok, where they were trying to read the book in 24 hours. And so I decided I wanted to try that out. But I knew that wasn't going to happen with an ebook, because once a book gets past about 500, 600 pages physically, I just can't read the ebook. It intimidates me for some reason, which I know is kind of dumb, but it just kind of happens. But I ended up picking up the physical book. It did take me about a week to read it, but I absolutely loved it. This book is like kind of a feminist fantasy. It has magic and dragons and a queendom, and I loved this book so much. I had such a great time with it, and I'm so glad I read it. But it definitely is one that I do not think I would have ever touched if I hadn't been part of this community. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue was a good book, but not a great book. I am kind of glad I read it, because I think if I hadn't read it when I did, I still would have eventually read it, just because of the hype was all over the place. I think I was a little late ordering my Book of the Month box this month maybe, and I ended up picking this book after I saw so many other people posting about how excited they were to read it, and so I was like, you know what, I don't think there's any other options I like this month, so I picked this one out. And while I'm glad I read it, it was not a favorite. It was a 3-star read. I don't think it was worth the hype, but it was still a good book. This book follows Addie LaRue. She was born sometime in the 1700s, and before she was promised to be married, she ended up making a deal with a demon, I think it was a demon, to, you know, never have to be married, to be free, to live forever freely. And she gets to do that, but at the cost of no one remembering her. But then she meets Henry, who does remember her, but why does he remember her? Right? And so it was an okay book. I liked it, but it was kind of boring at times. I typically really enjoy character-focused books, but this one I felt like was almost too character-focused without enough plot, or maybe the character was just boring. So this one was an okay read, but I probably could do without owning a physical copy of it. The final book I only own because of the online book community is House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. I have had zero luck with Sarah J. Maas. I have not had any luck with her books at all. I have not liked really any of her books that I've read, and it kind of sucks. Kind of scared to read this one. But I requested this book for Christmas in 2019. I think the only book I had read before this was A Court of Thorns and Roses, and so I thought, I still have plenty of other chances throughout Sarah J. Maas's books. It's fine if I didn't like A Court of Thorns and Roses. Surely I like this one. And since then, though, I have read the prequel to Throne of Glass and the first Throne of Glass book. I didn't really like either of those, and so I'm a little nervous to be going into this one. I will say that there wasn't so much hype around this book around the time that I joined the book community. I also think this is another one that I probably wouldn't know. This is one that I may have eventually read the ebook of or listened to the audiobook for, but I don't know if I would have picked it up or requested it for Christmas whenever I did. And so I still have hopes that I will enjoy this book, but I'm definitely more nervous about this one just because I haven't had very much luck with Sarah J. Maas's writing. These are just 10 of the books / series that I only own because I joined the book community in 2019. Overall, joining the book community has been a great experience. I've read so many books that I don't know if I would have ever found if I hadn't read them. And so many of these books haven't been available at my local library or on my local library's Libby. And I also don't know if I would have known that I could get a awesome library card if I hadn't been on the book community and following the right people. And so I would say that the online book community has definitely done a lot for my reading and helping me make sure that I read diversely and all over the place. I don't think this is my most representative stack, but these are like a lot of books that I remember seeing on Booktube and Bookstagram all over the place at some point in time. And also, if you don't mind, please let me know good things about Crescent City because I really want to like this book, but I'm nervous for it. Anyways, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.